Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Guerilla Sports Off Ice. JJ Jerez, Megan Angley, Jesse Montano here.
Sounded like he forgot my name for a second.
I almost excluded you just for fun, just to see how you reacted. But no, thanks for hanging out with us. I hope your week is off to a good start on this fine Monday afternoon. I know Jesse never knows what day it is, but it is Monday indeed.
Monday.
And more importantly, it's the day of the Avalanche first preseason game. I know it's not too much to get excited about. We still have some fringe guys on the roster, but a couple guys we're keeping an eye on. We'll get into heavily today. But for starters, how was your training camp? It felt like it dragged on, but went by in the blink of an eye all at once. Did you guys have fun this past weekend? These past 4 days before today?
I just really enjoyed being back at the rink. Like the training camp, I was talking to my wife last night. Like those days are a lot just because you log a lot of hours at the rink. Like, we get there 30 minutes before sessions get started. So you get there anywhere between 8:15, 8:45. And then by the time we're done with everything that we do, availabilities and stand-ups and stuff like that, it's like almost 3:30, 4 o'clock, depending on the day. So like, they're full days at the rink, but I enjoyed having to be back at the rink. You know what I mean? Like just adding that back into the daily routine. And we were down at Ball Arena this morning. Sense of normalcy to my life over the weekend.
I felt lighter. Even going back to the rookie face-off, we flew out Friday and we had an early 7 a.m. flight. And when I saw Jay in the airport at 5 a.m. and I greeted him, he said, "Oh, so you're always like this." And I think the biggest takeaway is I was on the brink of going to cover the rookie tournament. Of course, I'm excited at 5 a.m. And so camp was a similar sentiment. Every morning I wake up and I'm just immediately happy. And so they were long days. I think I've got some dark under eye circles. Don't look too close. But I'm just so excited to be doing a pod on an Avalanche game day and talk about hockey in those terms instead of this off-season roster. Who's going to do this? I mean, we're still doing it, but at least there's some hockey that we get to watch and start evaluating tonight.
Well, and it's we're still doing all that, but it's all based off of evaluation that we're getting to watch, not
to get real.
Right. Yeah. Not just like analytic models and based on what other people have said. Can we make sure that this camera's turned up to the highest resolution as zoomed in on Megan's eyes as possible? No, I'm with you. Like you said, just being able to add in on ice activities to a lot of these conversations, make them, one, a lot more fun, and two, I'm sure a lot more palatable for everyone listening.
We haven't had to dedicate entire chunks of time discussing Valerie Nichushkin in a really long time, which has been refreshing. We get to talk actual hockey. And my favorite part about this job is getting in the locker room, getting to talk to the guys, and also just observing how they are with each other. So getting back into that and the flow of that, I mean, that's what I guess excited me most about this past weekend is just getting back, talking to the guys, seeing how they were doing and just catching up with everybody.
Feel connected again. Right.
Yeah, right.
Like,
yeah,
that's a part of this job that, makes it, as interesting as of a job as it is, we get to be behind the scenes and see what's going on. And so I'm with you. There's just that, sense of getting back around all the guys, talk to a lot of the guys. We don't have to ask them about their summers anymore now that we're through training camp, but
about that.
Got caught up on everyone's summer and all that stuff.
Who gave you the best? Who's your favorite answer on camera or off from how they spent their summer?
Georgiev traveled a lot and he went to some really cool places. I'm only remembering France, but he went to other cool places and it sounded like he really enjoyed his travels.
He's my answer as well. We always, I guess not always, the last 2 seasons, we've chatted about golf and summer golf. So catching up with how his summer golf went this year, Alexander Georgiev was also my favorite to talk to.
I mean, he wasn't my favorite to talk to when we interviewed him, but Miles Wood was among my favorites who was talking regardless of who we were talking
Not
to.
while he was being interviewed.
Right, yeah. But
that is funny. When we did interview him, it's very like straight edge, robotic. Yes, let me answer your questions. But when we're interviewing his stall neighbors, he had no problem interrupting us and getting rowdy.
A lot to say. But a couple guys got married. Cale Makar got married, and I thought it was funny the way he put it. He said, "I'm happy to be on this side of things." And, the
dark side.
Right, referring to being married. And then Logan O'Connor was telling us about his honeymoon. I wasn't going to ask where he went, but then Miles Wood was telling him to tell us where he went. So then I said, "Well, where'd you go?" And he goes, "I went to Hawaii." And Miles Wood goes, "Ohio?" And he had to explain, "No, not Ohio, Hawaii." And that was, I think, my favorite locker room interaction.
Indeed, I agree. Let's start looking at the game tonight. Dallas Stars in town for preseason game number 1 of 6. So still inching our way closer to real hockey, but hey, we'll take this for now. Yep. What are we looking for tonight? What are we keeping an eye on in tonight's game? There's still a handful of players that are fringe / the competition guys playing tonight. So what, Megan, are you keeping the closest eye on as we get our first in-game action tonight?
The youths. Dallas, we got to see their lineup too, and Wyatt Johnston and Logan Stankoven are going to be in their lineup. And so it's a good matchup we don't have a projected lineup, but in Group 2 yesterday, we got a preview of some line rushes, and the players that are going to be playing tonight are similar to Group 2 from yesterday. And so I'm expecting a line of Foudy, Olofsson, and Ritchie. I don't know if that will be the case. I'm expecting it. I want to see them play opposite some Wyatt Johnston Dallas Stars hybrid. I don't know how their lines will shake out either, but they're going to get some of those matchups. And those are the top young talent, Wyatt Johnston in particular, in the league today. If players like Olofsson, Ritchie, and Foudy are making a case that they belong in the NHL right now, they have to be able to hold their own against the other top young talent in the league. And so I'm looking to them, and they're going to be given so much opportunity tonight too. In looking at the special teams work, they appear to also be that top power play unit for the Avs going into tonight. And so they're going to be able to take ownership of a lot of this game and seize really big minutes. And I'm looking to see how they carry themselves.
I'm looking most forward to something that you, Megan, were asking the guys about in the locker room. I thought it was the best question of the morning was, what is it that we can see in a game that we can't see in practice out of, you were asking guys individually, particular to their game. And that's what I want to see because, I think we all really liked Kovalenko at camp. I thought he even looked good this morning, honestly, at morning skate. There's a couple of plays he made that I liked of his, but how does he look in a game, especially against the Dallas Stars where he got a little bit of a look? Cal Ritchie, like you said, we talked last week about training camp is tough to evaluate because it is a lot of drills and a lot of stuff that is very much meant to emphasize offense and scoring and shooting and mechanics and things like that. But this isn't live ammo, right? How quickly are these guys thinking the game? How quickly are they able to turn up ice? How big of a jump is it for Cal Ritchie? Because he said this morning, I think you're always a little bit taken back by guys like Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar. Well, the speed is going to be ramped up another level, right? So rookie faceoff, that speed goes up a level for kids like him. Then you come into main camp and the speed goes up a level. Tonight, speed's going up another level. How do guys like Cal Ritchie, Kovalenko, Jean-Luc Foudy look? And I'm especially going to be keyed in on the guy that you and I were talking about this morning, JJ, of Oscar Olofsson. I don't want to say I'm out on Oscar Olofsson, but he's actually lost a little bit of ground in my book. He's looking less and less like a guy who's ready for NHL minutes, which is getting concerning given how far we're getting from his draft year. I want to see, how does he look 200 feet? Like I said, in some live game action. I'm just anxious to see we're stepping into, we're taking another step closer to regular season game action. And I want to see how some of these young kids handle that dial up in pressure and speed.
I'm with you on Olofsson. I've pinpointed 7 guys that I think we're all going to keep an eye on here that I want to dive into each of them throughout the rest of the discussion here, and Olofsson is not one of those 7. So I'm 100% with you. It just feels like he's kind of playing his way out of the conversation.
It's just too one-dimensional. It has stayed too one-dimensional all week for me. You and I talked about it early in camp, and I felt like JJ and I were sitting there. I was like, how are we still having the same conversation?
I think we even touched on it on the podcast we did outdoors. So
do you see?
Are you offended?
No.
Do you see it that way with Olofsson, or do you see it a little bit different for him?
So he has shown well in preseason before. So that is a standard that he's actually set for himself already that he needs to exceed, because we also now have a couple seasons pro of Olofsson to evaluate to know, okay, you looked great in these preseason games. And honestly, his production at the American League level, because he had a full season and it was a good foundation. And then what was supposed to be his second full year pro was hampered by injury, but his production pace was actually trending to be better than it was the year before. So he's doing the right things at the American League level. But when he got in NHL game singular, I don't remember what he was able to accomplish last year. He was really limited, and he struggled to be visible in regular season NHL games last year before he got hurt. And that's what I'm looking to see out of Olofsson. How has he figured out to be more visible shift by shift at the NHL level? Because he's got it pretty figured out at the American League level. I haven't seen him figure it out at that next step. And so this is a setting where he has to have it solved, because he already has shown well at preseason before. And then he has to show well here to justify then getting into some NHL games in the regular season. And that's where I really need to see him pop off a little bit more.
You're saying like a strong preseason game for Olofsson, like that doesn't move the needle. It's like, we've seen that. Yeah,
exactly. Because to your point, the one-dimensional has been kind of looming over him for a little bit now. And that's why he's been trying to build more into his game. Last year would have been a huge test of that was taken from him because of injury. So there's a lot riding on this to show that he has taken in some of the lessons that they've been trying to ingrain in him. And I need to see a little bit more, because even just in the camp setting, I'm not seeing him pop off. In the rookie face-off setting, I'm not seeing him pop off. And I just, Bednar would use the word loud. I need Olofsson to be a louder player.
Olofsson.
Olofsson. We're looking for Oscar Olofsson tonight, and not just when the puck's on his stick.
No, that's actually the biggest thing is, Cronin talked about how he needed to be a hunter, and that is kind of the power forward mold that he needs to adopt. And so he needs to be like a Kovalenko in those battles, one, hungry for it, engaging, and then regaining possession for his team. And those are the decisions that he makes away from the puck to earn them more Ozo time. And that's what I need to see from Olofsson, because he looks strong. It looks like he has bounced back from the injury in a good way. So I want to see him utilize that too.
Well, and I mentioned to JJ this morning, I said, so I'm glad that, to hear you say simply having a good preseason showing is not enough for Olofsson, because his skill set typically shines through on nights like tonight, where yes, they have a couple, Dallas is sending a couple guys that are, NHL skaters, but typically the lineup isn't as strong. Goaltenders typically aren't as strong. And when someone can shoot the puck the way that
they feed him pucks. They know his strengths.
Right. And so it's like, okay, again, Olofsson could have a hat trick tonight. I want to see what else he does. I want to see what he does away from the puck to get him back on, a list of 7 guys or, whatever it is, because I really have. He's maybe been the one player that I could say, like Ivan was a guy that I was really like hoping to see more, but really that was probably just us saying, well, hey, maybe he can really take a jump. He's probably right on track with what we thought. Olofsson's the one guy that I will say I've been disappointed this weekend.
He's almost like a Mikko Rantanen light. Right? I mean, everything you guys are describing just sounds like Mikko Rantanen, but obviously not at the level of production that Mikko
he's like
Rantanen's capable of.
He's like if you had Andre Burakovsky's skill set, but with the way that Mikko Rantanen plays.
Yeah, actually, like Mikko is someone he should really be. Okay, Mikko is who a lot of people should be looking to, but Mikko in particular is someone that I think he should really study closely.
Because Mikko, and again, I asked Jared about this early in camp. Mikko Rantanen, as I'm sure people will let us know in the comments as we're talking about this, has plenty of nights where he is not on his game, does not play well, but he finds ways to be impactful, whether it be at a key moment, right when you need it, or he just finds a way to grind out a few shifts where he has a positive impact on the game. That's the stuff that Olofsson needs to find.
Yeah, he has to find a way to do it in a fourth line, third line kind of style, right? And that's where he struggles, because in his mind he is more of a Mikko Rantanen and deserves, not that he's saying he deserves it, but his style of game is more fit to a top line guy, a top six guy, where he needs to figure out how to play more of that third, fourth line style, play to what he's being asked to do, like we've heard all weekend.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so, well, he's not on your list. Like, that's what I'm going to be keying in on him today is how often do I notice Oscar Olofsson when he doesn't have the puck on his stick?
There, he snuck his way into the list, but with our little conversation.
Yeah, we got a good amount in there.
Yeah, let's see if he sneaks his way into the conversation after tonight as well.
Yes. Yep.
That brings me to a guy like Calum Ritchie. We got to talk to him today for the first time. It was interesting. It took us this long to be able to talk to him, but is he doing enough right now? Is he doing enough to stand out and to really force the Avalanche's hand and say, you are not going back to the OHL? We have to take a longer look at you here at the NHL level, even if it's just a look.
Well, and to the point of Avery, whose comment was just up on the screen, it looks like he's going to get a shot at center tonight. How does he play in the middle of the ice? At this next kind of level. I'll let you start, because I think he's had I don't want to say up and down, but maybe not quite as up as I would have hoped for Ritchie coming into the first preseason game.
I think the challenge we're seeing in evaluating Ritchie based off the last couple days of camp has been the real-time adjustment that he is making to the difference in pace. And so I've seen the way in which it impacts things that he did well at the junior level, just in drills. He's not finding the seams that he used to at the junior level because NHL caliber defenders and goaltenders are able to stop that. And I think that has interrupted some of his playmaking abilities just in a camp setting. And so I don't want to say plays have died on his stick, but it has been a challenge for him to create the way that he was used to. And so as a result, that side of his game hasn't popped so far through camp. And the other side of his game is being a good two-way player. And so in a drill setting, it's a little hard to see it unless it's in those board battle drills specifically. And I've seen Ritchie handle himself with calm in camp. And so that has been a positive. In those settings, he's not making panicked plays and coughing up the puck, for example. And so I've enjoyed that too. But I see the issue with pace just coming out of camp. It looks like he is just a step behind some of the other players. And I think that's going to be easier to evaluate in a game setting. I also think it's why he hasn't popped as much in camp, because there are other players there like a Foodie or an Olofsson or even an Ivan who have had at least a season in the American League to get acclimated to the difference in pace. Whereas for Ritchie, it is a little bit of a shock, I think. And I expect him, because he is a high IQ player, to solve this a little more quickly than maybe some of his other counterparts. And so, it's only been a few days of camp. I think that he can figure this out more quickly, and he just needs a little bit more time, and this will be a truer test. So I don't want to be too hard on him for not really showing showing out in camp. I think he's just learning. And he's, to your question, is he doing enough? I think he's taking a lot of ownership in what he's doing. So the results might not be showing through a couple days of camp, but I think he's still taking so much ownership in what he's doing. I also think, too, 17 pounds is no joke, and that is going to make a difference too in his pace. I think in his adjustment to the speed at which the Avalanche play. I think that there is a little bit of adjustment happening right before our eyes. I'm curious to see what he does now in a game situation, because I haven't seen enough to justify full season in the NHL for Ritchie, but I'm not immediately panicking or assigning him back to his junior team as a result of that.
Everything can change in the in-game setting, as Megan's alluding to, right? And I think that's kind of what I want to keep an eye on. We talk so much about the process versus results in a preseason game, but we also have heard from Jared Bednar millions of times, do the right thing and the results will come.
Yep.
So I want to see how he's adapting to the process, how he's adapting to the structure, and really keep a close eye on his fit within the system, because much like we just talked about Olofsson, he's not due for top 6 minutes.
Right.
How does he fit playing the role that they're going to ask of him if he were to make this team?
Well, and I don't think it's ever more true than these preseason games, especially for Jared Bednar and the Avalanche. Jared Bednar, I'm sure, look, and like they're competitors, they want to win any competition they're in. But like we talk about all the time, Jared Bednar wants people that he can trust and that he knows what he's going to get. And then he knows you understand the systems and that you're going to be in the right spot. These games, like process over result has never been more true than for games like this. And not just for guys like Ritchie and Olofsson, but guys like Belmar, guys like Branstrom, guys like Shillington, who are all going to be looking to make an impact. Jared Bednar is going to want to see how are you adapting to the system? Are you going to the right place on the ice? Are you moving the puck quickly out of our own zone safely in the right area? I think about, you go back 3 years now. I guess I don't know the right way to say it. When they brought in Josh Manson and that very first game he played with the Avs, and he skated up the ice and he sent it clear across the ice to absolutely nobody. And you saw him even kind of like, oh man, when we asked him about it after, he said, yep, it's a system thing. I come from a system where there's a guy there and, I'm having to change. So how are these guys adapting to that? Because that, I think, is ultimately going to be what determines if Jared Bednar feels, even if Cal Ritchie hasn't popped, if he feels that he can trust Cal Ritchie and that he's picking up systematically what they want him to do, I think they're going to give him 9 games. And I think when it comes to this back end, DeHaan, Branstrom, Shillington, Malinsky, who can pick up on the systems and implement them at game speed the quickest and the most efficiently and the most reliably. And that was supposed to be just one thing in the night. That's who's going to get those spots. That's what we've learned with Jared Bednar is, can I trust you? And how well do you play to our identity? So that's what I'm looking for more so than the result tonight.
It took a guy like Jonathan Drouin a half a season last year to really get the flow and get comfortable. I'm not going to hold my breath for a 19-year-old after 4 days of training camp to really be able to snap right into it. So for that reason, I'm just kind of very skeptical about his chances of making the team, but still a guy we're high on, still a guy we're hopeful for. And I mean, we've been talking about him all summer.
Drouin's like one of the highest IQ
exactly.
hockey players.
My
in the
point.
NHL.
My point exactly. Yeah. Anything else on Cal Ritchie we want to get to before we move on?
To your question too, is he doing enough? He's one of the last guys on the ice in his session each of the days that I've seen him out there. He's working very hard. And so I want to give Ritchie, the player, that kind of credit. I see so much Avalanche hockey in him. And I just think he's looked a little bit raw in camp, but that's also to be expected. It's his first camp.
Right. Yep. Let's get to Eric Branstrom. 76 games played last year, 74 the year before that. Where do you guys see him play? How many games do you see him playing? Does he reach kind of a 76 mark again this season, or where is his fit with the team? Because he's definitely an NHL capable player. How many games is he actually utilized for this year?
Again, to me, I think it goes back to I've liked Branstrom in camp. I've liked him through the first 4 days in camp. I'm excited to see him tonight. I thought he gave a great answer to Megan's question about what are we going to see. And you said, what are we going to see different in a game than what we've seen in practices out of you? And he said, my instincts. And I thought that was a great answer because in drills, even in that scrimmage, you're kind of told where to go, what to look for, what to expect, who's going to be forechecking where, et cetera, et cetera. And I just like that he said, I'm going to get to show out my instincts a little bit. So again, I want to see how he folds into the system. Through what I've seen from camp, barring health, I think Branstrom is probably one of the clubhouse favorites right now to be on that third pairing come opening night. So I want to see how he looks tonight because I think he could be a guy that gets that many games or more.
What I've liked about him among the crop of defensemen we're talking about is how quickly he found other core guys. What I mean by that is you could see the lack of familiarity, like when in a drill, it was a McKinnon passing to someone who's new to the team in some capacity, whether it be a younger guy or a new addition, and passes just weren't connecting the same way. There was a crispness in how, just looking at like Avs power play one in a Rantanen, a Duran, and a McKinnon, they're finding each other like they've been finding each other for years because that's kind of what's been happening, with exception to Duran. Brandstrom's passes have been finding Taves, have been finding McKinnon and Rantanen and Drouin. And I think that it gives me a sense of confidence that the way that he instinctively likes to play already fits so well with what the Avs are looking to do. And I think that is where I could see him getting upwards, the 70 games with the Avs, just because he already seems to fit the way that they like to play.
I've got his interview from this morning if you guys wanted to listen to what Branstrom had to say, because I thought he had a lot of good stuff to say.
I don't see why not.
All
right. So I guess for starters, does 4 days of camp, is that ample time to jump into game-like action? Granted, it's only preseason, but do you feel ready for in-game action tonight?
Yeah, I feel ready. Skating for almost the whole summer too. So I think with all the systems and stuff, I think will be good to have a game tonight. So it will be fun.
What's your personal mindset going into the first preseason game here?
Just try to not overthink everything. Just be calm and play my game.
Are you excited to get your first game in altitude, kind of get that out of the way and know how it feels?
Yeah, I'm super excited for the game. First game for the Avs, so it'll be very fun. Yeah.
I guess, what's the approach? I know the results aren't necessarily a big deal, but what do you kind of want to focus on as a team to make sure everything goes right tonight?
I think play from our structure, what we've been practicing on, and take small steps every day here. But of course, we want to win too. So like I said, it will be fun to play tonight.
What about your game do you think will show better in a game setting versus what we've been able to see just in drills at camp so far?
I think more instincts probably. Everything happens so fast, and you don't really know what's going to happen out there. So I think, the instincts probably. Yeah.
There you have it. Heard it straight from his mouth. I think he's definitely. I'm with you, Jesse. He's the mainstay. It's really the guys like DeHaan and Shillington, I think, where the question mark really lies as to how many games they'll be playing with the NHL group. Or not that they're going to play any AHL minutes, I don't think. But
you don't think so? You don't think that?
No, they strike me more as healthy scratches. Let's rotate depending on who we're playing, what we're playing against, whether they go with a Shillington type or a DeHaan type.
So you don't think Malinsky is really in the mix?
It doesn't feel that way.
Interesting.
It doesn't feel that way. Am I crazy?
I mean, not trying, based on camp alone, not right now, but I think there are so many surprises that can come past the point of camp.
I was surprised he wasn't playing tonight. Malinsky. Sorry, I know we're talking about Branstrom. Is Malinsky on your list anymore?
No, he's not.
He's not playing tonight. Yeah.
I don't think Calvin DeHaan's playing tonight either.
He's not.
I was surprised that Malinsky wasn't in the lineup.
Shillington missed a day, hasn't had his equipment. I also think it's tough to evaluate him, and also why I think he's in the lineup tonight is he needs more opportunity, more time.
Exactly. I think that transitions us nicely to Shillington conversation, because that's my thoughts exactly. We haven't been able to see exactly what he's capable of. He is a veteran. He's got kind of that veteran presence, and I think he's a guy that the Avalanche already trust. They just need to see it still. And that's what tonight's about, is let's see Shillington and what he really brings to the table, because we've been having to approach his whole game with a grain of salt these whole last 4 days.
Right.
I think today that finally ends, and you can actually see and really evaluate Shillington. What better place than a game-like setting?
Completely agree.
Not even game-like, then a game setting.
Then a game. I'm very interested to see Oliver Shillington.
Mm-hmm.
Someone was asking this morning about Belmar, and do you think he's going to make the team? And I said yes, but I now feel like the Avs, I feel like they brought in too many of those guys. Like, you've now got this really weird log jam of nickel and dime contracts that are going to make it more difficult if and when both Gabe and Val Nichushkin come back. I really want to see what it is they like so much about Shillington. I even get the sense a little bit that if they would have known Oliver Shillington would have been available, I don't know if they would have gotten involved with Erik Branstrom. So like, I want to see what it is about Shillington because, and like, I'll be perfectly honest. Like, I'm not overly familiar with his game. You know, I did a little bit of digging, a little bit of research, highlight watching and stuff like that. He looks like a fine player. But I want to see what it is about him that fits so well, that a lot of, you know, that a lot of people have said that fit makes a lot of sense. He's got a lot of upside. I want to see that shine through because right now I'm just looking at this roster and saying you're making it more difficult for yourself to get cap compliant with a lot of these types of players where it's just like, we've got 4 options here, but what's one more? It's like, that's money. And, you know, when you're saying these guys aren't going to be AHL guys, if the Avs are bringing Val and Gabe back, Erik Branstrom or Oliver Shillington are maybe playing in the AHL. And, you know, I want to see why they felt it was necessary to bring in Shillington after having Malinsky sitting and waiting, after adding DeHaan, after adding Branstrom. What is it that's made you say we can't miss on this guy? Because I believe he's the most expensive of those 4, right? Do you guys know off the top of your head?
Don't know.
I'll look, but I'm pretty sure Shillington's the most expensive, and I just want to see why. Because I thought he looked very, you know, okay in camp.
Yeah, I think you're onto something with the Branstrom Shillington. They kind of have similar skill sets where they both have this offensive spark to their game that I think the Avalanche are really attracted to. I think Shillington may have a little bit more of a defensive reliability than Branstrom. So I think that's something the Avalanche might gravitate towards a little bit more. But I think Branstrom's skill set is just something you can't ignore. And, you know,
Shillington's the only one making more than $1 million.
Yeah. So I think if you want offensive reliability, you lean more towards Branstrom type. If you're looking a little bit more towards the defensive end, that's where Shillington fills the role.
I think both of these players made their way to Colorado for a reason. And for Shillington, it was not being able to come to terms with Calgary, who I believed eyed him for a second pair role more permanently as part of their future. And a lot of that was because of the year he had with Tanev. Together, Tanev made him such a responsible defensively player. And it was born from playing alongside someone who is so responsible defensively himself. It actually unlocked so much confidence in his game. He was less afraid of making mistakes and playing and learning from a player like Tanev. That removed from that, you know, he obviously had to take that break of time from hockey, and then coming back, he no longer had Tanev as his D partner. And so he had to kind of rely on then his learning from that time together to see what type of player remained. And I don't think it was a bad year for him in Calgary last year, but you saw the value that Tanev provided him too. So I'm curious, and I'm sure the Avs are too, what kind of player is Shillington removed from Tanev? Does he need that stay-at-home, reliable defensively guy by him for his game to shine? I don't know that that's necessarily true, because the speed component of Shillington is what I find most compelling about him, and the way in which he could leverage his size even more than I think he already does. Whereas with Branstrom, I think that, you know, Ottawa, yeah, he claimed himself he was not expecting not to be qualified. And I think it's interesting because, to your point, you know, he's maybe not always been the most reliable defensively, but he can move the puck really well. And I think that's what I'm looking for from both tonight, is one, to see the strengths of their game if they're as advertised, and if those weaknesses prove to be quite concerning, maybe.
Because they should both really stand out tonight. Like they should look like legitimate puck moving, you know, good skating, quality defensemen, and they're probably going to get matched up a lot against Johnston and
Stankoven.
Thank you, Stankoven.
Stanky.
I can never remember his name. I can never remember the last name. And I want to say, look, because again, I just, DeHaan and Branstrom, I was like, this makes a lot of sense. It's good competition for Malinsky. One, you know, that 3 guys for 2 spots with 1 extra. And then they added Shillington at a higher dollar figure than any of those other players. That to me says they really like him. And that's who they wanted on the back end. So again, I want to see why, because and again, big grain of salt with what we saw over the weekend. Big grain of salt.
I'm not even thinking about it.
Right. Because not his gear, immigration issues, all that stuff. But like, to me, I was sitting there and in my head, I was like, well, he looks like a guy that had immigration issues and isn't playing in his gear. So I want to see, like, you run out of runway pretty quick though. Like, this is the NHL. Very quickly, you've got to figure it out in that gear and get yourself on the same page as everyone else, because there's 4 defensemen going for these 2 spots.
It feels like Calgary was kind of like, man, we can't keep playing this guy at second pairing minutes. He's got to take a lesser role. And I think from his point of view, he probably looked at that and said, well, if I'm going to take a lesser role, I'd rather go do it with a decent team that actually has a shot. So where does that leave him exactly with the Avalanche, and what kind of player do we expect to see? I think it's still just a question mark all across the board, because
have you seen Calgary's defense? He would have been in a second pair.
Yeah.
Perhaps elevated.
Well,
so I think he actually was like, I think you're underestimating my value to Calgary. I think it's second pair and upper, right, as future planning. I think he probably wanted term. That's my guess, where they did not see eye to eye and couldn't get to the right place. But I think him ending up here is really revealing. He's probably getting lesser. Obviously, it's a short-term prove it kind of thing, but I think he didn't appreciate how Calgary might have valued him.
Well, and because I always try to ask the question, okay, why was he available? Given the way that Calgary's defense looks, why did they not?
They needed him.
Right. Why didn't they bring him back? And I think you always have to ask yourself those types of questions. The same thing with Branstrom. All right. Why didn't Ottawa even think this guy was worth a qualifying offer? And you know, we've seen plenty of guys come into Colorado on those types of situations and completely prove people wrong and you know, rejuvenate their career.
So I think Calgary was working on something with him and he chose to leave.
He was out there late though. He was out there well past the open of free agency.
I think there were talks late into the summer, and somewhere along the way they did not see eye to eye, because I think that was the plan for both sides. I think Shillington probably would have preferred to stay there too.
But you know, that's always a thing that, and I'm not trying to be like cynical or anything like that, but you know, you have to. I remember talking to people with Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos. Oh my God, can you believe it? They traded the MVP or going to the Super Bowl. It's like, why were they so anxious to get rid of him? And then for 2 years, Denver Bronco fans found out why they were so anxious to get rid of him. But so again, I want to see the Shillington that thinks he's got top pair potential. He's 27. You know, like I want to see the guy who thinks that he was undervalued in Calgary and who thinks that this is his best opportunity. Like, come and show out. Jared Bednar, I loved the come and earn it statement the other day. And I want to see them follow through on that. You know, like is Oliver Shillington, Eric Branstrom, Calvin DeHaan, Sam Malinsky, like, come and earn these last 2 spots. And I still think coming through the weekend, I think maybe Malinsky is a little bit behind. But otherwise, I haven't really seen any of those dudes fully separate. And I want to see a couple of them start to do that tonight in a first preseason game against a lesser roster.
So where does all this defensive conversation leave Sean Behrens? He's getting some time tonight. We've seen him get a lot of power play looks and really getting, I guess, the keys to the bus, but it feels like it's the bus, not the plane, right? In the AHL level bus. Yeah. So where does all this conversation leave a guy like Sean Behrens?
I think it leaves him exactly where he's meant to be, because he has had such a strong plan from the jump, which included returning for his junior year. I think Sean Behrens, the player, wanted to leave after sophomore year, but the organization said one more. He gets a national title out of it too. So I don't think he has any regrets about that, but he's on exactly the plan that was intended for him for a reason. I like the way he looked in camp, and I think if he had come after sophomore year instead of junior, I might have liked him a little less. He looked Like, he carried himself really well playing opposite, the McKinnons of the world. He looked calm, he looked confident, he looked mature, and he made some great stick plays defensively. And so you can see that real-time adjustment I'm describing with Ritchie that's going to apply to Barons too, but he, having gotten a little bit of American League experience at the end of last year too, he already seems like he is picking up on it really quickly. But because of where the organization is with their defensive depth chart, there isn't a need for Sean Barons right now. And I think that the Barons that gets called upon by the Avs for a real opportunity one day it's like him coming out of DU after his junior year. He's just going to be more ready for it. And I think that's exactly where he's at right now. I think he has put himself in a place to be in an NHL debut call-up conversation as soon as this year, but a full-time role isn't available to him right now, and I don't think it was supposed to be. I think they have a future plan for Barons that is going to be a full-time role, and it's just at least another year out before we start talking about that. And it's just to give him all the time that he needs, because it is a position very few are Cale Makar who can come straight from college, drop into games, and translate the two. That's why I'm actually so impressed with what Malinsky was able to do coming from college, to be able to produce at the NHL level straight from college like that with American League experience mixed in, of course, was so impressive to me. I don't want to underestimate what Malinsky is capable of. This camp hasn't really been a place that he shined, but we saw what he was able to do with NHL games last year, and I don't want to underestimate that either.
You got to learn to drive a Corolla before you get the Lamborghini, and I want to see him be doing donuts in that Corolla by the end of the season. I don't need to add, Megan put it perfectly, I don't need to add anything to that, but just the take the keys to this car, and once you've mastered that car, we'll get you in this one.
Right, different approach for Barons, right? You don't have to come out, improve a point, try to say, hey, I'm here to make the NHL roster. You just got to start making your progress towards being a leader in the AHL locker room.
Vaguely Sober's comment says, I'm not dogging on Girard, but Barons is his replacement. I will again remind everyone, I think people so wildly undervalue and underestimate how good Sam Girard is. He jumped into the NHL at 19 years old as an undersized defenseman and has stuck ever since, playing in a top 4 role. I think Sean Barons is probably looking at a guy like Sam Girard and saying, if I can get close to that, I'm going to be really happy with where I land. So again, I know Vaguely Sober isn't
sober,
and he knows, he's pandering a little bit to the Barons crowd.
Yes, but again, like, and that is not at all a knock on Sean Barons. What I'm saying, I just think, again, I don't think people give Sam Girard enough credit for how good he is.
Barons skating is what would need to take another step to be in that conversation, and it's not a knock on Barons skating where it's at right now. It's just how next level Girard's skating is.
Sam Girard's an elite. He plays with Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar, so he gets lost in this conversation a lot. He's an all-world skater. He is all-world on his edges, his change of direction, his agility, his ability to escape pressure. Like, Sam Girard that's maybe the part, Megan, thank you for putting it better than I could have. That's maybe the part that people don't get. Yeah, Sean Barons would need to go a long way to match that type of skating,
which he's got time to do.
Yep. That's what we want to see him do.
Well, let's see if he does it tonight. That's all.
Right now, in the span of a night.
He get his skating there by
I want to
7
see
p.m.
one tornado. Sean.
Let's go to Nikolai Kovalenko.
And that'll be huge for the Avs if Barons can replicate what 100%. If you could get Sean Barons to that type of level, that is the true. You drafted, you developed, you built this guy up, and now you get a guy in there who you can get at a little bit of a cheaper price. But again, Sam Girard's another one the Avs don't get enough credit for. They traded for him when he had like 2 NHL games under his belt. He was the centerpiece of the Matt Duchene trade. People forget about that because they also got Byram and so many other pieces out of it. But the centerpiece of it was Sam Girard. That was the impact piece the Avs were able to plug into their back end. He was a young player. He had one NHL goal to his name, only a handful of games, and they've developed him into a set and forget top 4 player every single night. And so Yes, I completely agree with that. If the Avs could develop Barons along that same track, that's exactly what you're looking for. That's the blueprint.
A lot less pressure on a guy like Barons coming into a preseason. Just come show us that you're ready to drive the AHL bus, like I said.
That's right.
Nikolai Kovalenko has a little bit more pressure, especially that we've been told over the weekend that he's got the leg up on guys. Will he continue to have the leg up as we move through this preseason?
I found it interesting. The line rushes that he's been on kind of later into the camp this weekend have been some combination of like Ivan, Prishapov has been there. And I think it is intentional for Kovalenko to establish himself as the leader, as the most NHL ready guy there is, and a guy who can then help sort of guide that line as a result. And so it's giving him, I know some people have worried like, oh, he's being hampered with some of these younger or less experienced guys, but I actually think it's giving him opportunity to show just how far ahead he is and be a leader. And I think that's true in just the opportunity we're seeing him get with the power play. He appears to be on the second unit, but it looks to me like the top unit. Just in what I've seen him do on that second unit, he is sort of in that rover net front role, and he does it really well. I've liked the way I complimented the way that Branstrom has been able to find his guys. Kovalenko as well. He just, his passes are connecting tape to tape with some of the core Avs players in ways that some of the other younger guys have not quite figured out. And that's what's encouraging to see from Kovalenko. And then, of course, what I'm excited to see in a game setting is the way that he has shown in the board battle drills. I think that is where he can really appeal to a Jared Bednar and earn trust in a preseason game. That will bode well for him for regular season.
I also love how he's always willing and able to fire that puck. He's not just looking for passes. He has the vision, can make the passes, but he likes to get the puck on net too. I think that's just a trait you want to see in a guy like that. Especially
a young guy that he's not afraid to trust himself and he's not deferring to other guys. Whoa. So you had that comment queued up. Will you go back to that Kovalenko one? There's a question asking about how he's adapting to the systems, because he was a guy that when he got dropped into playoff games, you could tell was playing a lot off his instinct. And there were a couple bad mistakes, including a brutal turnover in the middle of the ice that nearly sprung a breakaway. Going the other way against the Dallas Stars. What he's going through right now is what he needed. In fact, I even feel for him a little bit now watching him get to go through this. Man, that was crazy to be dropped into an NHL playoff game like that. I think, to Megan's point, I think he's showing his polish, and he's showing that he has played in pro leagues against men before. I know KHL, AHL kind of go back and forth in terms of what's the second best league, but he's been playing at that level and excelling at that level for multiple years now. And he looks like a guy that is not overwhelmed by learning systems, and he seems very coachable. And to Megan's point, he looks a little bit more mature and just looks a step ahead when he gets paired with those AHL or younger guys trying to make the team. So to answer the question of the comment, I think this is exactly what he needed. I think this is, if it was up to Jared Bednar, they would have gotten him in regular season games last year before dropping him to the playoffs for exactly the process that we're seeing him go through now. With every passing day, I have felt more and more comfortable and understood more and more why he was not at the rookie faceoff.
Why Evan is in love with him.
Yes, exactly.
No, it's true. He is comfortable playing among men. It's clear to me that he's been doing that. And I loved in the interview that he shared that Lokomotiv played very similarly to the Avs, that I think the system adjustment isn't quite as much a shock to the system. I just think some of those reps in the playoffs were really hard to jump into.
It's easy to say that while we're watching training camp. I think it's easy for a guy to get a hold of the system and make it look right in a practice setting. That's what makes a night like tonight so exciting. Let's put a microscope on Nikolai Kovalenko and see how he does it in a game scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. He's probably him and Ritchie are probably my
two biggest guys to keep an eye on.
Wow. There's a lot of guys to keep an eye on.
Yeah. I won't try to narrow it down to two.
I think one of them is Joel Kiviranta. he's playing tonight, and he Jesse hates him for some reason. I don't know.
I do not hate Kiviranta. I thought Joel Kiviranta really stepped his game up in the playoffs. I just think he is the ultimate kind of like, there are 15 Kivirantas on the free agent market every year.
But not all of them are part of the Finnish mafia.
It's so true. I can guarantee you that's why he's back here.
Jussi Saarinen referred to it as the Finnish mafia unprompted, so now I feel like I am allowed to say that.
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
will forever refer to it as the Finnish
I just
mafia
wasn't
now.
sure if they were clued in on the fact that other people call it that, but they definitely are. So I felt validated.
I think Kiviranta, the familiarity helps his case, but also the fact that Jared Bednar needs people to jump into the penalty kill this year. I think that reason alone gives Kiviranta a slot, at least within the NHL lineup. I don't anticipate him playing AHL minutes to start the season. We'll see how he manages and how he grows in that conversation. But I think Joel Kiviranta is a guy that can be relied on. You know what to expect from him. You guys have already said it 100 times today alone. Jared Bednar loves that consistency and loves reliability. I think Joel Kiviranta is a guy that isn't going to give Jared Bednar many headaches when it comes to where his role is needed and asked.
Here's my prediction. Because Kiviranta really found chemistry with Wood and Colton in the playoffs, and there are some holes in the top 6 to figure out, I can see LOC being elevated at the start of the season. The Roaring 20s doesn't have to start the year together. I think they'll find their way back to each other, but I think that Kiviranta would be a guy that they're considering for that because of the PK minutes that he can absorb. I was looking at random stats over the offseason, and when you looked at like hits per 60, Kiviranta was among the like top 3 or 5 for the whole team. And so I think Jared Bednar loves that type of quality in a player as well. I didn't even necessarily personally observe that about Kiviranta, but I guess he's throwing the body around shift by shift. I guess he is. And so those are two things that I think, alongside the trust of having played with the Avs for a full season, are going to give him a little bit of a leg up. But I don't want it to come at the expense of a Foudy. If Foudy pops off in preseason and you're like, wow, he could really add some skill upside to the bottom of the Avs forward group, I don't know that I'd feel comfortable going Kivy over a Foudy if Foudy does what he needs to do this preseason.
I was just giggling to myself thinking about Ross Colton saying, oh, we weren't roaring out there, we were putzing.
Yeah,
I did like that.
I was trying to remember what word he used, and then once putzing came into my mind, I giggled. So I wasn't laughing at what you were saying.
I was like, wow, rude.
It was like Foudy in the NHL.
Yeah. Again, I think Kiviranta in the playoffs last year was impressive. He played at a different level, but like I said, he's just kind of it's Joel Kiviranta. He could be there and not be there, and you probably wouldn't notice.
That's a roast.
I remember last season we hadn't seen him play yet, and I said, is it time to call up Kiviranta? Is it time to throw him in the lineup? Jesse's like, nope, it's not. I think the next game he was in. So it was,
hey, what do I know?
Eat your words.
I just work here.
Last guy I really want to get to, we kind of touched on him already.
Can we not act like he wasn't like really bad at the end of the season though, right before the playoffs though? Like he actively struggled in most games.
But then playoff Kivy showed up.
Yeah, playoff Kivy.
All right. I'm just when preseason Kivy shows up tonight, I'm just gonna
Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, tell me he's a great fit, please. He's a great fit, right?
I think he's an outstanding fit. I just the only thing that I think has any potential chance at stopping him from making this roster is if they just say it's going to be too hard to make the money work. Because when it comes right down to it, it's a little bit over $2 million that they're going to have to like kind of finagle if Val and Gabe Landis got to come back. It's not the exact number. Keep in mind, just the way that things are set up right now on Puckpedia, there's a couple players on the roster that, move that guy. You can move that guy. He'll start in the AHL. There's a couple of those guys that you don't mind. Jacob McDonald, if you got to pass him through waivers, then you got to pass him through waivers. I don't think he's going to be on the roster at the start of the season. Maybe Parker Kelly is a maybe better example of that, who might have a two-way deal this year. So you could maybe move him a little bit.
He should be on a two-way. I think Kelly and Yure Anala.
There's a couple of these guys where it's like, yeah, you can get pretty close. But if they sign Bellemare, that probably means there's at least one guy that you're going to have to put through waivers that you don't want to. That's likely going to get claimed if they add Belmar.
I worry so much about the defensemen. I don't know what they're going to do, but somebody good's going on waivers.
And I almost wonder if that's part of the plan.
I think it is, but I can't imagine them relinquishing Malinsky.
I can't either.
I think, to your earlier point, like, it's going to be someone that's too good to be going through waivers and will get picked up.
I think odds are, I don't think it's DeHaan. He's a more veteran guy. He, to me, is the Jack Johnson of this year. The 7th D, healthy scratch, in the lineup when you need him. Will kill penalties, will block shots, will play on your bottom pairing as needed, but will not play every game. He's also, like I said, he may not be playing tonight because he's probably injured already. I think
just roasting everybody.
I know. This is the roast of the Colorado Avalanche, actually.
Colorado Avalanche fringe guys are on the fucking hot seat today. It's probably Branstrom or Shillington. If you truth serumed Chris McFarland, Jared Bednar, they'd probably tell you the plan is for one of those guys to get picked up somewhere else. We won't have room for him, and we're not going to bury him in the American League. Now, if they obviously come out and if Branstrom looks terrible in preseason, then yeah, you could probably pass him through waivers and no one's going to pick him up.
So you think one or the other?
I don't think that Malinsky was such a highly coveted college prospect and showed so well in his NHL time. I think he's going to get claimed no matter what, and that would be a hard guy to let just walk. I don't think they're going to do it to DeHaan. He's a more veteran guy. I think that you would have the team not doing right by a player like that to sign him, convince him to come here when he told us point blank, I'm chasing a Stanley Cup at this point in my career.
You said it a lot faster than that, but yeah.
And then to send him to the AHL, I don't think they do that from an optics standpoint. So to me, just by process of elimination, I'm sitting here saying either they're not going to call up Malinsky at all and they're just going to leave him in the American League all year, which I guess is a possibility, or they're basically sitting here saying it's one of these two. It's Shillington or it's Branstrom. Because I just, again, you're going to be faced with that decision at some point this season either way. If you get Gabe and Val back, it's just going to be too hard to make the money work with both of those guys plus Pierre-Edouard Bellemare.
Even if they start Malinsky in the American League, doesn't he still have to pass through waivers?
I think it depends on when they reassign him.
Okay.
I think.
That was my only worry with that is I could see that, and then they call him up as needed down the line and just Caleb Jones keep him up through that point and don't worry about it later, which I wouldn't want from Malinsky to not be getting minutes either.
Right.
But
because I'm fairly certain, and I'm not positive on this, but I'm fairly certain if they reassigned Malinsky today to Eagles camp, that he'd be able to just be reassigned. But I think there is a date where anything that happens after that, you've got to go through waivers. And I don't know, maybe they try to rush him through with a bunch of guys on the first day of waivers where all those players get pushed through. Maybe you try to sneak one of these guys through on a day like that. But yeah, I just think that
they've invested in Malinsky at this point that I don't see them taking too big of a gamble there if it's not necessary. So I'm curious to see what they do.
All that to answer my question about Bellemare.
Well, because it all goes hand in hand. You know, like if you're gonna bring in Bellemare at even $850, well, that's $850K. You've now got to figure out the way to make it work. Because again, right now they're under the cap. They've got $2 million and some change until they hit the salary cap. But that's not including Gabe Landeskog's 8.5. And Val Nichushkin's 6.5. And again, that $2 million-ish also includes some players who you can peel off pretty easily. They won't be there. They won't be there. You know, that guy's not going to, that guy won't stick. Whatever. When I did the math a few weeks ago, I came to about $2 million that you're going to like actively have to try to figure out how to make it work. So again, going back to the Shillington conversation, and that was before they put Belmar on the PTO, is the whole point of why we're saying this. Okay, add in $850 more, and how do you make that work? To me, it's why I maybe was a little bit hard on Shillington, but like when they made that signing, I was like, this doesn't make sense. You already signed your puck moving upside guy, reclamation project guy in Branstrom. Why did you just add a more expensive version of that? Unless there's really something about him that they were like, son of a bitch, we wouldn't have done this other stuff if we would have known he would be there. We have to get him and we'll deal with everything else later. So I think there is nothing hockey or locker room wise that would stop Belmar from making this team. I'm just trying to figure out how you make the money work. And do you really need that guy? And Parker Kelly and Chris Wagner, who I think will likely be an Eagles first line center more than anything else. But I don't see any reason you wouldn't keep Belmar around unless they just sit there and say that the dollars and cents just don't add up.
Parker Kelly feels like Riley Tufte last year, where you saw Bednar try him at center and just see what he can get out of this player, but it doesn't mean that he has an NHL spot locked up. And I don't want to speak down on Parker Kelly and what he's capable of, but I just think there's too many guys like him. It's a really competitive area of the roster.
Yeah, indeed. I saw somebody got banned from our chat. I think that's a first for us.
It was just like, they were just like spamming.
We are so bad.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, they were just like dropping all kinds of stuff in there.
That's how we know hockey's here.
So like right now on this NHL roster, it has Parker Kelly, Chris Wagner, and Yoel Kiviranta. I think if you're fully healthy, I think all three of those guys are being waived down to the American League, right? Is there any, if you get Lehkonen, Landeskog, and Nichushkin back, safe to say that all three of those guys drop down, right?
Yeah.
Is Belmar signed?
No.
In your scenario.
In my scenario, yes.
Then yes, I definitely, because I think they still need that fourth line center, and I think it's Belmar.
And then on the back end, Puckpedia also includes $775 for Jacob McDonald, plus $800 for DeHaan, $900 for Branstrom, $1.05 for Shillington. You can't keep all those dudes. You just can't. One, you don't have that many spots, and two, especially if you start adding all those other guys back in, you just can't keep all of them. And no. like you just can't. So that's why I'm sitting here and I'm saying it almost has to be that they are saying it's Branstrom or Shillington. Because I'm with you. They've invested too much in Malinsky to let him walk for nothing. Not walk, but let him
just
get claimed. That's the other reason why I thought Askarov made a lot of sense for them. And I thought it made a lot of sense for them with Georgiev going back, maybe not directly the other way to Nashville, but them then moving on from Georgiev, because that would have saved you a bunch of money as well. There's the money gymnastics that they are going to have to figure out. And I guess Gabe is $7 million and Val is 6.1. I was a little bit off on those, but yeah, you've got to make this work somehow. And those names that I just listed, Shillington, Branstrom, DeHaan, McDonald, Kiviranta, Wagner, and Kelly, I just don't see how you can keep all those people around.
Yeah, well, those who say that preseason is meaningless can swallow their words tonight, because there's a lot of meaning and a lot of things to keep an eye on, a lot of things in our microscope.
I'm excited about that. It's been a long time since we've had this for the Avs.
Yeah, so if you're going to the game or figure out a way to watch, what we're keeping an eye on, you should keep an eye on it too. And I'm excited to hear other people's analysis, not just ours.
Chicken taco night for Vaguely.
Yeah.
Do you think we get a meal tonight?
I hope so.
I think so.
It's preseason for everyone.
I mean, we got bagels for camp.
Hey, shout out to Family Sports. We give a lot of flack to them.
Was that them or the Avalanche?
Family Sports was the one who kept coming in and
freshening it up.
So, I mean, I don't know, maybe it was a joint effort, but shout out to whoever
Gave
that piece
media,
together.
yeah.
Because we
Fruit and bagels.
benefited from it
My
all
mo-
week.
My money's on C-Mac. I think it was his.
He
doing.
was the most surprised by it. He's like, "Whoa, you guys got all this in here today?"
All right, maybe
And we were
not.
like, "Yeah, it's for you." He's like, "I can have this." And we're like,
You can have
"Yeah, dude, this is basically your building." But yeah, sure.
Definitely wasn't Bednar. He thought it was donuts.
Yeah,
He walked in. It was bagels, bread, like different, like kind of cakey type bread, and then fruit. And Jared walked. He's like, "Man, you guys got the donuts in here?" It's like the one thing that's not on the
That's
table.
not there.
Only thing that we don't have is donuts.
Right on. Well, we talked everything I wanted to talk. Anything you guys want to get off your chest before we head into
Did we get
preseason
through
game
all
one?
7 of your
that seemed-
guys?
We
that
did.
not seem like 7.
Okay.
Kiviranta, Belmar, Kovalenko, Barons, Shillington, Branstrom, and Ritchie.
Wow.
Cool.
Great show driving. I didn't even know that we worked through all 7.
Same, because we added a few in there.
threw some curveballs at you.
We didn't
Chloe,
even
are there
talk
any
about
comments that we
Foodie.
missed? Oh, we didn't even talk about
We don't
Foodie.
need to talk about footy. We have all preseason.
If you want to hear him whisper into the microphone, you can go to the Guerilla Sports YouTube channel and check it out.
Another roast.
Someone DM'd me. They asked why you look so scared, and someone described it as like a hostage situation.
I thought it was, usually the scrums are a little bit tighter around the player. When we talked to Foodie, we all kind of just had a big circle going.
Yeah.
And I don't think he knew where to look. He was
Well-
glancing around so nervously.
And since he was in the other locker room, they had to like bring him in. So it was like, here's Foodie. And suddenly he was just kind of standing there. And Megan, you are a very intimidating, scary person. So,
I get that a lot.
Yeah, I can tell.
Of all the fun and funny interviews we had, I think the best was when we got to talk to Kovalenko, and we couldn't post it because Billy Madison's opening scene where he's rubbing sunscreen on his chest was in the background.
Is that why we couldn't
Have you not
post
seen it?
it?
Yeah. Not only is it
No,
on in the background, it's just like the worst scene to possibly have on in the background.
I
From
did
that movie?
Not know that.
Yeah, I'll pull it up and show you. We were watching it, and JJ goes, "Is that Billy Madison?" And then
Yeah.
smiley face right across his stomach.
What day is it?
Yeah.
October?
Josh Manson trade? What? Well, hold on.
I think they're asking like to make the cap work. Would they trade Josh
oh,
Manson?
oh.
I don't think we missed the breaking news
Okay, I was
announcement.
like, what the fuck?
That would be crazy.
You just don't have anything like Josh Manson. That's the part that makes that tough. You just don't have another player.
You're sacrificing a lot of size getting rid of a guy like that.
No,
Mhm.
I think it would come from the forward group if they needed to trade to make space.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I don't know who.
Well, let's wait to see how it all plays out, huh? All we
Let's
can
do
do is take the game in front of us, analyze that, and then go to the rest after.
I'm excited for tonight.
Yep.
I'm excited to get in there and watch.
Okay, thank you for joining us.
Indeed.
Goalies, there's nothing really to pay attention to tonight.
No, it looks like Miner and Annunen are the two goalies, and Jared Bednar mentioned yesterday Annunen and Georgiev should get about 2.5 games each throughout the next 6 games.
Why do you?
That was not Eustace out there on the far end.
He was in the locker room. Yeah,
It's on the sheet for
Yeah.
tonight.
that's what I thought too. But then
that was not him on the ice.
That's what I thought too. But then we walked into the locker room after morning skate. He's got his bottoms on, and he looks like he just got off the ice. And I was
What?
like, oh, I thought the exact same thing.
because I didn't even see him in the locker room.
I did. Yeah, he was there.
I didn't see any goalies at all.
I didn't either.
It was Miner
Blacked
and
out
Annunen.
in there, and
I mean, I believe you, obviously. But
I believe you.
I looked down. I said, "That's Trent Miner." I looked down there. I said, "Oh, that's that other kid I don't even recognize." So I stopped paying attention to who was down there. I did not. Well, then I completely changed what I think I'm going to be watching. Eustace I want to see he should have a strong game tonight.
Mm-hmm.
He should have a strong game tonight against this level of competition. I completely changed what I just said. I didn't think that was Eustace. I will be watching the goalies closely tonight, or at least him.
Right on. Well,
All due respect to Trent Miner.
I guess we can end the show abruptly.
Does it have to be abrupt?
Goodbye.
Thanks for hanging out with us. Bye. No, enjoy the game tonight.
Forest, Puckpedia, Gabe and Duke included in their total. Perfect. Is there more to come after that?
You
They
just
gotta
end the
be
show
hidden
when
away.
we're ready.
I'm done. I was just reading.
You done too, Megan?
Yeah, sorry, just reading.
Yep. Enjoy the game tonight. Those who can watch and figure it out. I know there's some hoops to jump through tonight, but there's a lot to watch. So I'm excited to get back here and break it all down with you guys. Other than that, keep an eye out for our post-game coverage here at Guerilla Sports. So thanks for hanging out with us today. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.